vibes are immaculate right now. The team is at the top of the table. One more game before the Four Nations break, and Kevin Sawyer from TSN joins us again. Kev, what's going on? Great to have you back on the program. How about those Jets?
Isn't that unbelievable, right? Just like, when's it going to end? I mean, I said at the beginning of the year that they've got levels that can't be sustained, and I was wrong. Just keeps trucking. This train keeps rolling. It's been great.
You know, we'll dive into last night's game and you know, look ahead to Friday and the break in a minute, but take us through what it was like on the road through this last road trip. You know, they finish off with the win and then go to, you know, places that they haven't had a lot of sustained success in the past, Boston and Montreal and Washington. You know, picking up wins along the way, maybe the game of the year on Saturday, but you're with the team on and off the ice. I mean, what's it like traveling with the team right now that's on the heater that they are, that continues to do and prove a lot of people wrong every time they get out there?
Well, first of all, traveling with the team is the best part of the job, bar none. The biggest challenge is not eating my face off because there's food everywhere. You get on that charter and there's, no shortage. Listen, that road trip, for me as an analyst and a fan, although I'm not allowed to be when I am, it's impossible not to be. I'm looking for different trends. For me, a team that is ready to win is a team that's gone through the gamut of emotions, the gamut of different challenges through the course of the rehearsal, the regular season. So you go to Montreal first. It hasn't been an easy place to play historically for Winnipeg, and they got thumped in that first period. And I was like, oh boy, here we go again. And when Montreal can get going, they're lightning fast, they're creative. And I thought, okay, how are they going to respond? And they come back out, completely grab hold of the game again. And of course, win that game. That's not an easy thing to do. When the rink is so tilted heavily against you, to be able to regroup the way that they did and win that game was impressive in a special way. Okay, they move on to Boston, and I'm saying, all right, what's this going to be like? They're in Boston. They thumped them 8-1 the last time they played. The Frederick fight with Gustafsson, what kind of pushback? And there was nothing from Boston. I was surprised about that a little bit, to be honest with you. And Winnipeg just continued on to do their thing. Moved to Saturday's game against Washington, best on best. And I think it was the game that we all had hoped it was. What you saw there was Winnipeg near their best, beating Washington near their best. And although the Caps were able to tie it up, a couple goals off the rush, uncharacteristic, those things happen. It's just more of the same, where Winnipeg doesn't blink. They have such a deep belief in themselves, in their plan, that no matter what happens, good or bad, it doesn't seem to pull them very far away from their nucleus, from their natural default state. And to me, that is playoff hockey. When it gets tumultuous and there's question marks, oh boy, we haven't seen this before. How are we going to react? They seem to be reacting the same way all the time. And that is a mark of a team that, to me, is ready to win. That road trip, especially against Washington on the third game of that trip, beating them in that building, that was a big one. That was a big one.
You know what? It wasn't. And I kind of, you know, thinking about what they were able to do, and then going into last night, you know, the old first game back from a road trip, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel with the break performing the way they did. But it seems like there's a focus and a commitment to doing the right things and to each other that really started off on the first day of training camp, when to a man they owned the disappointment, the lack of being at their best in the playoffs. And it seems like in a lot of ways, Kevin, that has sort of forged the identity of this team, taking nothing for granted and focusing on every game as an opportunity to prove, maybe not necessarily to others, but to themselves, that this team is capable of playing with any team that you can throw it on the ice in the NHL right now.
That is the word, Huskers. The word is not skill. The word is not goaltending. The word isn't special teams. The word here is identity. And that has been the focus now for almost 3 years. And on that note, it's almost the perfect team to play against. In my opinion, in my 8 years of traveling around this league, talking to different coaches, Roddy Brind'Amour has been my favorite. And there's been a lot of great conversations over the years. But when I talk to him, I feel like kicking a door off the hinges for him, and I don't even play anymore. He's got that kind of effect on people. And then I go into his locker room and I talk to his players, Stahl, Martin, the core guys that have been there for a long time. They're not repeating and regurgitating what he's saying. You can tell that they've had a part of building what they are. That is a rock solid identity in the Carolina Hurricanes. The reason that I emphasize that so much is the Winnipeg Jets last night took it from them. That is a big deal for me because that team doesn't get pushed around very often. And I thought that Carolina got beat in some ways at their own game by staying true to your identity. I thought the Jets made a little adjustments to the way they played. They accepted the speed and the attack mentality of Carolina and said, we know how to beat them. Be tight defensively, allow them to come because you can't push the tide out, right? It's like fighting the wind, and then reverse it and get behind them. And that's exactly what Winnipeg did. I was looking to my right between the benches, and guys for Carolina were talking to themselves coming off the ice. Roddy Brindamore was rubbing his face going, my goodness, like they're a shot mentality team that weren't shooting the puck because they were so rattled about not getting the quality chances that maybe they're used to getting. So an identity that's rock solid in Carolina was beaten by, in my opinion, an even better, tighter identity with the Winnipeg Jets. And that's the difference. That's what it is.
You know, there's so many angles of this team, the world-class historic run they're on in the power play. I mean, the Scheifele and Connor doing what they're doing goaltending-wise. I mean, the overall team defense that has them with the second least goals allowed in the National Hockey League. And, of course, goaltending. And we always think of Connor Hellebuyck. He's the best goalie in the world right now. He's looking at another Vezina trophy. But you had to feel great for Eric Connery. And you know, I made a point of watching the last 5 seconds and throwing my phone on to see the way the players celebrated with Eric after getting that shutout. And, you know, the backup goaltender it's a weird job. I mean, you're often getting the toughest spots on the calendar, the second end of back-to-backs. And up until this point, I mean, the players, I think, felt a little bad that they hadn't played better or at least scored more for Eric. It was pretty clear what a popular teammate he is and how happy everybody on that bench was that they were able to keep the clean sheet last night for number one.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you or any of our viewers here anything about Eric that they probably don't already know. He's so well liked. But the one thing they might not know is through those 8 games, Eric's quality of play was great. It certainly wasn't on him, and that's the truth. There was no game, in my opinion, in there where he was weak. There was only a couple of goals that I can count out of, very few that he allowed against him. That were ones that he'd like to have back. Every goaltender does. But Eric truly blames himself. He looks at those games, and when you try to talk to him about run support or whatever, he goes, I could have done better here. Here's what I could have done better here. And when your teammates see that, hear that, and know that you're taking the accountability on your own shoulders, they take more responsibility and they want to battle for you even more. It's not just because he's a really nice guy. And he's a nicer guy than most people even think. Watching him on the plane, on the road, he's got time for everybody. He's great.
It doesn't even seem possible, to be honest, when you interact with him, like away from this sort of show, just in daily life. Like, he is that dude.
And like, listen, with all due respect, he's a rich kid. Like, we all know it. Let's just say it. Like, he's got everything that he could ever want in life. And he's still one of the hardest workers, one of the kindest, most humble people you'll meet, which makes it even better. It's true. It's crazy. But he blames himself for not being better. That's the mark of a champion in my mind, where you could take the excuses, they're there, but he doesn't. And I think that adds to the fact and to the desire of his teammates wanting to elevate him because he takes it on his own shoulders. So it's the person, no doubt about it. And that gets talked about a lot. But maybe what doesn't get talked about enough is the professionalism in the person that could have taken another easy road in life and chose not to. He is a pro, man. This guy, he's all Winnipeg Jets through and through. There's no doubt.
You know, I mean, I'm interested in your perspective. And I know Hellebuyck, I mean, goalies are weird to begin with. And he's a really interesting dude. But how, what's the dynamic between those guys? Like, I mean, are they sort of the goalies together? Are they, if you looked at the team traveling around, would you even know that they're the two goalies? And just in your opinion, what does Comrie's level of positivity, his upbeat nature. How is that helping Connor put together this historic season and the run that he's on?
Good question. If you would have asked me that question 3 years ago, I would have had a specific answer on the relationship between Comrie and Hellebuck and the interaction off the ice, on the plane, on the road, etc. I honestly cannot find a trend when it comes to the interrelations between these guys, because they're never hanging out with the same guys to the point where you are like, oh, okay, well, that's that click. Oh, okay, those guys get along. Okay, it's clear. Like, don't get me wrong, Neil Pionk and Dylan Sandberg, they got an Uber the other day in DC and went out for a nice lunch and saw a monument. They're buddies. But it's not always that way. And it's the same with the goaltenders, where when Eric and Helly talk at the rink, it's not very often that I catch them doing it. We're only in the room so much, but they get down to business, and you get the sense that they're sharing different angles that maybe nobody else can see. But other than that, the relationships are fluid. And that is a big change, guys. Like, where before it was quiet, the room used to be quiet. Now it's like a beer league locker room, and they interact in different ways. As far as the positivity with Eric Comrie, I think guys like Hellebuck, Morrissey, that are at such a high level of professionalism that demand so much from themselves, what helps you can hurt you. In other words, your focus and your energy towards being better brings you focus, gets you ready to play the game. But at times when things don't go well, that can gain momentum in a negative way. And I think Eric Comrie's lightheartedness and he's got such a positive energy helps guys like that, just by saying, I don't have to be so serious all the time, and I can still be getting better while smiling. And I think that's the effect that Eric brings, where he works hard, he's a details guy, but he always does it with a smile on his face. That's needed.
Well, and listen, I mean, I'm sure everyone right now kind of taking it from those two to the team overall and the dynamic. I mean, let's face it, winning is fun. And this team has won more than anybody in the National Hockey League. But it does seem from afar like this is a group that, when you talk about a team, absolutely exemplifies not only every single guy doing everything they can to help their team achieve their goal night in and night out, and they've been very successful doing that. But kind of to what you mentioned, I mean, there really isn't, in some teams, there are the Russians that are together. Here are these guys. More often than not, and you could speak to it more than ever, this is a night where you could see different guys together, and it seems like it's almost interchangeable, because they've come together the way they are and continue to flourish doing that on the ice.
You know what? I'll tell you the story from my perspective, and this is probably an overshare. I'm going to share it anyway. In the front of the plane 3-4 years ago, we would never, media, TV, radio, social media, wouldn't even look over your shoulder to look in the back of the plane. That's theirs, and it is. Like, this is all about them, and we're respectful of being just allowed on the charter, which is a great thing. Now, our flight crew, there's two guys and a gal that are just great, and they've been accepted as family from the team. No different than the media and everybody else, where now not only do I look over my shoulder every once in a while, I walk to the back of the plane, chat with the flight crew, get smacked on the ass from a couple of different players on my way by, and the guys are playing cards, reading books, chit-chatting, making jokes. And that's not just after wins. That's a general state of attitude, and you can feel it. And again, we've got nothing to do with this. I understand that. But the peripheral feeling of the joy in your day and how much you like and respect each other. That whole fiasco in Vancouver, when they said you don't have to like each other, you just have to respect each other, that's bullshit. You have to enjoy being with each other every day, because you spend so much time together. And if you want to go through the gauntlet and raise each other up, you got to like each other too, to some degree. And there is no question these guys like each other. They like the people they're around every day. That's a culture thing, back to what an identity thing is too. It's crazy. It's crazy how much that's changed over the last 3 years.
I love your perspective on this, because it's a unique eye-in that, fans and probably most of the media don't get. But I do wonder, and you mentioned 3 years. I mean, this really did start when Rick Bowness took over and started, changing that culture. But how would you compare this year's team under Scott Arniel and the new coaching staff to the team the last couple of years? Is it more the same? Or, I mean, certainly with the results that we've seen, it seems like they've taken it to another level. And from the outside looking in, it almost seems like they've taken what was a really good culture that obviously didn't end up with the success they wanted in the playoffs. But it seems like that's sort of formed them into an even tighter group this year.
Yeah, you know what? Think about this. They're less skilled than they were last year, in my opinion. They're less experienced this year than last year, in my opinion. And their backup goaltender probably isn't as good as the one they had last year, in my opinion. And listen, I'm not saying that for any other reason than that's what I believe. Eric Comrie is a great goaltender. Lauren Burrell was outstanding last year. So you take all of that, you package it up, and you say, that's what's gone. How are we better this year? Well, it has nothing to do with skill. There's no shortage of skill in this team. That has not been the problem over the years. It has been the identity piece. It's been the buy-in piece. And everybody says, oh, buy-in. Yeah, okay. Well, the only reason that they bought into something is because it works and it adds to offense. You're never going to get the best out of players unless there's something in it for them. That is the truth. Whether it's the end goal of having ultimately to win a Stanley Cup, but scores got to score. They got to score to have buy-in day to day. It's a long, grindy year. And you're looking at Mark Scheifele low in the pocket, on the wall behind his own net, digging pucks out better than he's ever done before. And the buy-in comes because it adds to offense and it works. And I mean, who can argue with that? They're the best defensive team. They're the best offensive team. They got the best power play. I mean, it's all coming together from a plan that has been laid out from Rick Bowness. But the mastermind behind this tactics, the team play, when Rick came to town, was Scott Arniel. And so now it's just been more of the same. And you're looking at a team right now that believes what their coach is saying because it works, simply works.
Well, and that belief is a powerful thing, especially when you are looking to overcome some demons or, do things that you weren't able to do in the past. And, it just seems like there's a momentum to what this team has built. And, I do wonder, Kevin, I mean, listen, I kind of went into last night's game, with Comrie starting and having just finished this trip, knowing that there's one more game on Friday and then everyone's going to be able to either play in the Four Nations or for the other members of the squad, probably go somewhere warm and get away from hockey. And that can be somewhat of a dangerous time. They came to work last night with one of their best performances all around. I would expect no different on Friday. But what do you make of just the team, the challenge on Friday, moving forward and just trying to keep doing what they're doing and then breaking for 2 weeks and trying to fire it back up down the home stretch through the trade deadline to the most important part of the year?
Yeah, it's funny because these trap games in some ways haven't really affected the team. Last game before Christmas, first game home after a road trip. More to what we were just talking about, where they truly just focus on their day and like what makes them best on that particular day. So you're coming in, here come the Islanders, no Matt Barzal. That's going to hurt them big time, of course. But, Patty Waugh's team still can try to lock things down and be hard to play against defensively. And that's no big deal because we talked about it before. The Jets still stay to who they are, play their game, but they adjust to their opponent to some degree as well. And they're fine. No problem. 0-0 after one, no problem. 1-0 after two, no problem. But when you leave and you take a break like the Jets are about to, like every team is going to, you think about, okay, what can we hang on to so it makes sense when we get back? Well, there's so many different things. It's not our top lines firing all cylinders, we win because of them. It's not because our top six beats the other. Third line's been scoring, chipping in from the fourth line, offense from defense, special teams. There's so many different things to grab onto when they get back that I just think that the rest and the break is going to be such a positive. They're fairly healthy right now, but I think coming back refreshed and feeling good, and rightfully so. They've got a strut to them. It's not arrogance, but it's confidence. And coming back rested, knowing that they've got all these different areas that they can latch back onto, not just one or two. I think the break is great.
I'm not sure if you noticed this. We just found this out about an hour ago that Mike Sullivan has announced that Sidney Crosby is being evaluated for an upper body injury following a collision with Luke Hughes and Eric Halla last night. Listen, I think we'd all love Mark Scheifele to get an opportunity that I think he truly does deserve. I think of all the people that you'd want to, him to take the place, Sidney Crosby is almost the last, just because of the opportunity for him to play. But
wow,
if this opportunity came for Mark, knowing the disappointment early on, how he has, I mean, to be honest, stuck it to Don Sweeney 4 times in 2 games, and the level that he's played is probably already at peace with it. Certainly hasn't affected his play at all. If anything, it's made it better moving forward. What do you think even a last-minute opportunity to be a part of that team would be for Mark Scheifele if he makes it? And if it doesn't come his way, the other side of it, getting some time away to kind of recharge and help lead this team to where they want to be.
Yeah, well, one thing for sure is open arms. There's no doubt about it. And Mark is, and every player will say you never want an injury to happen, especially to Sidney Crosby. I saw the injury, wasn't aware he was being evaluated. So that what a blow that would be to Canada. But to Scheifele specifically, open arms, because he's earned it. And I still feel like the schedule that the Jets were in when Team Canada was picked was the difference for Mark. He was on the outside looking in anyways, in my opinion, and everything needed to go right for him to make that team. And the team was maybe flatter than they've been all year long. I think it was schedule based. I really do. Guys were banged up. There was different time zones, all the rest of it. But what an opportunity, because he's earned it. But here's the other side of this is pain can do one of 2 things. It can make you go away, or it can make you better. And I'm seeing the latter for Mark. It hurts for sure for a guy that considers himself and is among the elite in the world. For that kind of heartache and disappointment to only fuel him and make him better, that's a great sign for Winnipeg, because this is a guy that is fueled for the right reasons, and adversity brings out the best in him. And whether he makes the team or doesn't, once that tournament's over, I don't think Mark Scheifele's game is going to dip, because he needs to stick it to somebody else. I think that he's saying to himself, I need to be better, and I need to continue to grow my game if I want to get to where I want to go in all areas. So what a great sign for, to me, that's a championship habit, where I don't think Mark had that 3 years ago, to be quite frank with you, where he wasn't buying into the complete, both sides of the puck. Now he is. And that kind of heartache, disappointment, adversity, call it what you want, makes him better. That's a good thing.
Well, and listen, I mean, whether you're looking at the numbers that the team has put up, or what he has individually, what his line has done, what the power play has done, having a career season. And there's a few guys that can say the same right now for the Winnipeg Jets. Kevin, this has been so much fun. It's always great having you on the program. Just before we go, let's look ahead to Friday night. One more game. This might be the most difficult one just to lock in and focus on before guys get a chance to go on a bit of a break. And they're playing a team that has basically been playing playoff hockey for about the last month, in the New York Islanders, who beat Vegas last night and have won 8 of their last 9 games. What are you looking for when we drop the puck Friday night in this final game before the Four Nations break?
So what stands out for me, and what I love, is you go from Montreal to Boston, and those are 2 completely contrasting styles of game, where one's transition speed, and you have to be able to play in that environment and dictate. And then the other one's going to be more rock'em sock'em, barroom brawl type of a game. It wasn't in Boston. That was more because of Boston's lack of passion, in my opinion. But to be able to shift while still staying to your identity is so important. And I see that same thing coming here, where you go from Carolina, shot mentality, shot suppression, up and down the ice. Man, you got to react quick. You got to execute, move the puck, to a style of game with the Islanders where it's going to be in a lot of ways opposite, where you're going to have to understand and accept the fact this could be more chip and chase. This could be more low scoring. Are we comfortable with that? Yeah, we are. And it's just one more exercise on the path to the big show. This is the rehearsal. And the Jets have proven time and time again for me that they can rise above in tough trap games, if you will, but also have the ability to change the style, accept the style, and yet stay true to their identity. So I accept, and why wouldn't I accept more of the same from what we're seeing for them to extend this run they're on.